This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Seth launched our Patreon page, and that's up on there's a link on our website, watspoilers.com, wotspoilers.com.
Yeah, it's a little Tarvalin mark on there. Just click on that, and that'll take you right to the Patreon page.
Yeah, if you want to donate any amount of money.
Really. Right, and we're still figuring this out. I think that the only reason I'm putting this up is because we've had a few requests.
Yeah, people have literally been like, "Where the hell is your Patreon?"
Right.
I'm like, it's been like 3 weeks, but it's up.
Yeah, and I'm trying to start with I don't know. I think reasonable. Certainly, there are options to go up from there. I named all the levels after the different levels of Aes Sedai. So you've got and Ashaman.
Yeah. I like that. Was a good idea.
So you've got novice accepted Aes Sedai and soldier dedicated Ashaman. So
and depending on the amount you donate,
sure. And we got some rewards in there. Again, we're looking for ideas to expand those. If you donate at any level, we're doing that access to possibly a live stream of us recording.
Yeah, we want to do something with that. Oh, I remember what I was trying to write a second ago. I will poke around and look at like merch. Like we want to do some kind of merch.
Yeah. T-shirts, mugs.
So we could do special, special editions of stuff like some podcasts do. But T-shirts, something simple that I can drop just like maybe a couple $100 and like have a good amount for a while, and then whoever
wants one.
I've seen people do it. You just like order it and you get a few boxes of like various sizes in the mail, and then they have your logo or whatever, and when you want new ones printed, you just order a batch.
Sure.
Or something like that. I came up with this idea like 20 minutes ago, so it's not really well developed yet.
I think we're actually talking about it here and now and talking for the first time.
That's what's happening.
So help us out with ideas. If there's something, if there's something you'd like to see,
heck yeah, if there's something you want, and like if we get a couple of people that all say that, then we're definitely gonna want to go in that whatever direction that is, whatever you guys want.
Maybe we could like auction off guest spots or something, or put guest spots at the highest donation.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that too. I've gotten some messages on the Instagram, and I think a few on Reddit.
Sure.
Where people asking about
Twitter.
Like maybe doing guest spots or like ways for them to get involved. So we're trying to brainstorm and figure out good ways to include people. This guy messaged me the other day that lives in Vancouver somewhere, and just like hang out. I thought that would be a super cool thing. Right. We'd start doing more stuff like that.
Yeah. Bring in more voices. I know you and I certainly have things to say, but we're not omniscient.
Very charming, but it might be refreshing to have other voices on here.
Sure. After how many hours? We're talking at least 10 hours of us droning on at this point, maybe closer to 15.
17 episodes out? 16?
Yeah. If you count episode 0, 17 episodes.
I probably shouldn't talk about stuff so current because all these episodes come out like a few weeks after we actually record them.
We're not talking about anything topical. These books aren't changing in the next week or two.
That's true.
We sit down and record a couple of episodes, and then I edit them and release them, according to the schedule, which makes it nice that if we ever need to, take some time off, or one of us falls headfirst off our bike.
That happened to me yesterday.
We have some episodes in the hopper. Yeah, it didn't really stop the schedule though.
Timber's crying.
Yeah,
probably his ball's under the dresser.
His ball gets under the dresser, and he stands there and cries at me till I get it for him. Or in this case, Patrick gets up and gets it for him.
It's like part of the podcast.
Yeah. Hi, Timber. See, now he wants to play with it. But yeah, back to you falling headfirst off your bike.
I got into an accident. Seth and I both do most of our commuting around the city on bikes, which is a thing here in Portland. There's got lanes for you and stuff, so it makes sense.
It could be better.
Yeah, keeps me from getting fat.
It keeps me from getting fatter.
Yeah. So I think this this episode's going to be out like a day or two late because I had canceled.
But yeah, actually, it's out a day or two late because of the 4th of July, and I went out and partied instead of editing an episode. So strap yourselves in, guys. Look at the timestamp. We've got a lot to talk about. There's some prophecies.
We had a serious discussion with Min to talk about.
I figured I'd go ahead and throw this stuff in the beginning and just say, you guys seem to like the longer episodes.
We've noticed that we get way more downloads on episodes that are like over an hour as opposed to I thought it would be the opposite. Like I thought people would, like a 30-minute episode would be more consumable, but I was totally wrong. Maybe not entirely, but people just seem to like the longer ones more.
Yeah, and I can't imagine why a population of people who read The Wheel of Time would like long form media.
Of course, right. These are patient people.
Yeah, with a lot of time on your hands.
People who loyally waited 15 years for the final books to come out.
Well, now we could have some people who are discovering it for the first time.
That's true.
It's been out. It's been finished now long enough that people could have discovered it after it was over, read through the whole thing in one go. I'm sure there are lots of people like that out there, and who are now doing their first reread.
A couple other people have mentioned us on Instagram, just saying we inspired them to do a reread, which is awesome.
Yeah, go you.
I don't have it in front of me right now, or I'd call out some names, but I've been exchanging messages with.
And I've been loving the engagement on Reddit.
Is there anything else we wanted to? We talked about the Patreon and told people that that's there. Did you want to directly shout out to a couple people?
Yeah, I've got a couple of, I don't actually have the names here, but I have a couple of just follow-up things that I wanted to go over because people have brought them up. I was saying the engagement on Reddit has just been fantastic. I feel like I've had a lot of people, both regulars and one-timers, who comment and start. My favorite thing is when people on the subreddit start arguing with each other about things, and I don't even have to get involved.
Saw a little bit of that. That's great, though. I'm happy that we're inspiring some discussion.
That's my biggest goal. I think is to inspire. Well, maybe inspire rereads, but also to inspire discussion about the series and people to look at it in a way that they may not have seen it before. Especially, I feel like a lot of people get a very flat read of it because it's very hard to catch all the little details without knowing an awful lot about the series. And I want to give people something that's almost an anchor for them.
That's something we talked a lot about when we were just kind of had the idea floating around to do a podcast, which was actually we just would bullshit about it very occasionally for the last couple of years. Yeah. That's how me and Seth met, by the way. I just had just moved to the city, and I was finding room shares on Craigslist so that I didn't have to pay more than $500 in rent. Yeah. Or I think that's around what that room was, maybe
something like that.
Something.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember.
So Seth was a random person I met through Craigslist. Yeah, it's actually.
You meet people, and
you
meet thousands of people, and most of them don't have a Wheel of Time tattoo, so they suck.
That's true.
Yeah.
Everyone who doesn't have a Wheel of Time tattoo sucks.
Everyone. Wait. I'm working on it. I am seriously.
I thought you kind of didn't want to really ever get a tattoo.
I would never. I haven't cared about anything enough. I feel like this podcast may qualify as caring about something enough.
Yeah.
I feel like there's enough work, and this has been enough of a baby that I've worked on, and assuming it goes long enough, and we actually do get a decent logo.
Yeah, we've been talking to just artists we know. One of Seth's friends is putting in some work and. See how that goes.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have something besides my terrible Photoshop yin yang and and
random clip art that we pull from Google Images.
Right,
That's pretty much what we're working with so far.
All right, so we're starting off on a brand new day. This is chapter 15, Strangers and Friends. What did you say the chapter heading title was, or the chapter heading icon?
The Sunburst. is what I called it.
So that's the White Cloak sunburst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's always associated with them.
Yeah. So that's basically telling us White Cloak's ahead.
The very first thing I wrote in my notes for this chapter was, after a day of rest, I'm always the most sore. Because we see Rand wake up here and he just feels like more sore even than he did yesterday. And I just think that's a super common thing where, if I'm do a much longer bike ride than usual or work out really hard, it's like the next day I'm sort of sore, and the day after that I'm like crazy sore, and then it just kind of tapers off, goes away.
You know what I think's going on here?
Hmm.
Channeling sickness.
Could be.
Oh yeah. Today's the day when he feels the effect of channeling Bella. It's been 1 week since he made her run fast.
That makes perfect sense.
I said in that podcast that we would talk about it when we got to it. We're here.
Yeah, I remember that.
Today's the day he gets the channeling sickness.
Sunlight streaming across his narrow bed finally woke Rand out of a deep but restless sleep. He pulled a pillow over his head, but it did not really shut out the light, and he did not want to go back to sleep. There had been more dreams after the first. He could not remember any but the first, but he knew that he wanted no more. With a sigh, he tossed the pillow aside and sat up, wincing as he stretched. All the aches he thought he had soaked out in the bath were back, and his head still hurt too. It did not surprise him. A dream like that was enough to give anybody a headache.
So there's that headache from that's sort of the beginning of his. Now you could think it might be part of the dream because the other two boys also wake up with a headache.
Yeah,
but very quickly his symptoms diverge from theirs. So I want to read what Moraine says about the channeling sickness. This might actually be in chapter 21.
Okay.
This is Moraine talking to Nynaeve, describing how she began channeling as a wilder and suffered from the sickness.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, Moraine to Nynaeve. You felt nothing special at the time, but a week or 10 days later, note we're now 10 days after that first channeling incident.
Right.
You had your first reaction to touching the true source, perhaps fever or chills that came and went suddenly and put you to bed, then disappeared after only a few hours. None of the reactions, and they vary, last more than a few hours. Headaches and numbness and exhilaration all mixed together, and you taking foolish chances or acting giddy, a spell of dizziness when you tipped and stumbled whenever you tried to move.
Oh, that's what happened. Sorry. Keep going.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. When you could not say a sentence without your tongue mangling half the words. There were others. Do you remember? And then there's a little bit later. There were only reactions, Moraine said patiently. Each time the reaction comes closer to the actual touching of the source until the two happen almost simultaneously.
We see Rand, he has a headache all morning, and then he gets really giddy and takes a crazy risk at the end of this chapter.
That quote is exactly what's happening to Rand this entire chapter.
Yeah.
And so I'm also kind of curious what sort of risks Nynaeve may have taken when she was first.
I'd love to hear the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if that comes up anywhere in the series.
I don't think so. We don't get to know Nynaeve on a intimate level very well.
Well, not before she becomes the wisdom.
Yeah. But I just mean we don't get to hear that many stories about like her childhood or
right.
her love life or anything like that.
Yeah. Sorry, I lost track of where we were because I was going off on the channeling.
I got us. So Rand drags himself out of bed. He goes downstairs to try to find something to eat and runs into Master Fitch arguing with his chef about her cat because he wants her to get rid of the cat because customers are complaining that there's so many dead rats scattered around the inn.
Well, their back's broken. Yeah, no, this whole bit between the two of them is just to let us know and Rand know that the dream rat's back breaking happened in real life.
Yeah. I wrote on the side of that little note that Ishmael's just saying hello.
Yeah. Yeah, that's his way of because he sent in his little spies, his rats, to let Rand know he knows where he is.
And then killed them.
Mm-hmm.
I was also a little curious. I didn't really put much thought into it yet, but I maybe wanted to speculate with you, how would he do that?
So, yeah, I think, and this is off the cuff, so I may not be right about this, but they talk about how there are only 2 Forsaken that are able to find Ta'veren from their effects on the pattern: Lanfear and Ishmael. So I think somehow the Ta'veren-ness is
We know that's a talent that other people have.
Definitely. Or certainly seeing Ta'veren.
Isn't there an Aes Sedai we meet later that has the same talent?
Suan.
Suan, okay.
Yeah, the Armelin seat.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how she spots Rand right away.
Yeah.
Because he's so powerfully Ta'veren.
Thaldara.
Yep.
A cat named Ciri is getting blamed for all the rats that Ishmael murdered. Thought it was funny that the cat's name is Ciri.
Isn't it Seri or something like that?
It's Cirr. Could be Cheery.
Cheery. I like that. That's a good name for a cat.
Cheery?
Cheery. Yeah.
That's
especially
unlikely.
Especially a cat that's like really miserable and mean.
Yeah,
Just like be like, oh, it's Cheery. So Rand is basically, he's looking for advice, and he starts looking for Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's freaking out because he had this dream, and he knows that the rats are actually dead. So he's like, I need to ask somebody, and so he goes looking for Tom. But he finds him down in the common room and
doing some hustling.
Yeah, he's just basically, he's up on the stage, and so Rand's like, well, I can't ask him.
Yeah.
And so he heads over to...
I think it goes up and talks to Perrin before he leaves. And we see that Perrin also is complaining about a headache, and find out that they had the same dream.
And this is where I don't think Ishmael knows which one of them is the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah.
He's just sort of using his ability to find Ta'veren, and since all 3 of them are Ta'veren, he's able to sort of pull all 3 of them into the Dream Shard, but he doesn't really know which is which.
And when all 3 are together, they should be having a crazy effect on the pattern at all times, even now.
Yeah, I don't think they're quite as strongly Ta'veren yet. I think the Ta'veren-ness is growing still at this point, because they don't seem to really be affecting... Like, Matt doesn't have his luck. Perrin doesn't have his leadership skills. Rand doesn't seem to have the sort of coincidence-causing ability yet. None of that seems to really be happening around them. So I'd be willing to say
true.
that...
It's not described.
Yeah, I think that even at this point, they're definitely strong Ta'veren and growing stronger.
I love that you pointed out the channeling sickness thing, because I had all sorts of theories about... All right, let's just wait until we get there. The exchange with the White Cloaks.
I wish I could take credit for finding this out, but this is all over the internet.
Yeah.
About this being the first time he is channeling sickness.
I think Rand and Perrin debate about talking to Moraine, and then Rand is like, listen, we got to go look at this city. Like, we're here.
Right.
And Perrin's like, nah.
And I think this is just a bit of their personalities coming out. Matt jumped up, got out of bed, went out into the city.
He's already disappeared
into
the crowd.
Rand, he's like, yeah, I'll follow once I get up, have breakfast, get myself ready. Mm-hmm. Perrin's like, I'm good. I'm staying home. Yeah. I don't feel very good.
He's not even getting out of bed.
He's such a homebody.
He totally is.
He's a man after my own heart.
And he just doesn't... He's not the type to really be interested in things like that. Like what a city might have to offer, basically. Like he doesn't go drinking and carousing, chasing ladies or anything like that.
Yeah, he knows what he wants. He wants to be a blacksmith. Mm-hmm. And there's no need to really explore a city to be a blacksmith.
Yeah.
I mean, he's excited and he'll definitely eventually get out there, but right now he's got a headache.
He keeps kind of saying things like, yeah, it's like the Two Rivers, except there's more people.
Yeah.
He's just like not as impressed as everyone else.
I mean, I think through the entire series, the one thing Perrin never loses is his love for the Two Rivers.
Yeah.
More so than the other 2 characters.
Which is appropriate since he ends up the monarch of the Two Rivers.
Right.
Monarch?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think so.
I'd call him a king. I mean, he's a sub-king to the end, there's a whole, like...
Technically.
Yeah, he's more of like an earl or something like that, where he rules his... I don't know enough about medieval hierarchies to know where to place him, but he's subject to the king, but only to the king and not very much. Or the queen, I guess, in this
case.
Right. She can make requests. There's a scene where they are negotiating.
Yeah, it's in the last.
That's
Memory
pretty
of Light.
fun because we get to see Morghese act a little vicious.
Well, and then just seeing Perrin negotiate like his stubborn no, and like he's I don't know. I love him. I love him.
But I think they end up like a semi-autonomous. It's like a self-governing territory. I think they have to. He ends up maybe having to kick some taxes to Morghese or something like that. They come to some kind of an arrangement.
He definitely pays taxes. So the next thing is Min, right?
Yeah, he runs into Min. Oh,
because this is her second time seeing him. So she saw him yesterday.
This is the best. I loved reading this.
Oh, this is good. I think their relationship is the best relationship in the series.
It's my favorite.
Yeah. Maybe not even Lan.
That's interesting. I mean, there's other interesting relationships, but I feel like I should kind of point out that we get a lot of Rand and Min together and like their intimate time and non-intimate time. And when I say intimate, I don't mean just sleeping together, but also just like
emotionally
their time
intimate.
Alone. Yeah. Being emotional together. So that could be part of the reason why I feel attached to that character, but I think she's also just an interesting character.
I feel like she's the most modern character in this story.
Totally.
Because if you look at her, she's wearing a blouse and jeans and heels, right? That's like her tight breeches. Those are jeans.
Yeah.
Her heeled boots. Those are just like, if she walked down the street in that outfit with the short hair, she would look like any modern woman in any modern city.
Rand points it out a lot. When he first meets her, he was like, a girl, or I think it's a girl.
Just because she's wearing pants.
Yeah, he's totally confused by that. And she has the short haircut.
Yeah. But that's the fashion that spreads. She creates that fashion and spreads it to, I think, Kyrian?
She's like kind of almost like a queen?
Yeah. Totally.
Sort of.
At least a consort.
Yeah. She's always with the Dragon Reborn, and
people aren't blind.
Yeah.
Like,
she plays a pretty important role. She's also really attractive.
Yes, they point that out a lot. That like she looks like a boy until you actually look at her face. So, like if you look at her hair and
or
pants,
other parts.
Yeah, no, totally. If you look at her clothing, she's wearing boy clothing, and so they say she looks like a boy. But that's just because she's wearing the uniform. Especially when she starts plopping herself down on Rand's lap, and he talks about her hips. Anytime they're talking about hips, they're talking about ass. In the series, they're not talking about their hips; they're talking about their butt. And plopping down on his lap and like wiggling. Are you kidding me?
They're like young 20-somethings who are falling in love for the first time, more or less.
Oh, totally. Great flirting and touching.
They sleep together every night. I can't imagine they're saving it for the triple bonding.
My mind went somewhere else for a second when I thought you were going to say triple bondage. Right. No one really waits for the everyone. Remember how pissed Elaine is when she's the last one to sleep with him?
I don't. I'm looking forward to rereading it now.
She's like, everyone else has had something. Now it's my turn. And that's after the triple bonding. So the other two girls, like, there's that whole, they get drunk together because they're trying to block it out. And that's how Avienda and Min, like, really meet for the first time and, like, hang out. Because, like, they don't really know each other that well.
Yeah.
Before the bonding.
What a weird situation.
Yeah. But then they're both, like, stuck feeling that. Well, I guess Avienda's able to block it, but Min can't. And so, Usquai.
Oh, I always said Usake. Don't know that that's right.
Usquai is how they say it in the audiobooks.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Which is tequila.
Whiskey.
Whiskey?
Yeah.
I always assumed it was tequila.
Usquai, whiskey, whiskey. Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. I mean, if you say it that way, it definitely, yeah. And I think the way they describe it being, because they grow corn.
Oh, right.
And they make the whiskey from corn.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I think they grow corn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And tomatoes. They have like traditional Mexican,
native,
Yeah, like Native American, Mexican.
but Southwest type crops.
Right.
I've read that it took a long time for corn to make its way north because it wasn't adapted for a long time.
Yeah, isn't it? It's a pretty low moisture crop, isn't it?
I think we're getting
Yeah,
beyond what I really know.
Outside my wheelhouse.
Timber's growling low this whole time.
So the first thing Min says to Rand is a shepherd with a heron marked blade. So she calls him a shepherd right off the bat.
Yeah.
And she notices the heron marked blade, which means she knows what it is. She's the big city girl.
Yeah.
Even though Berlon's not really a big city, but small city girl, at least. She's a little more worldly. She's like, isn't she like 26? So she's like a little bit older than Rand.
Is she?
Yeah, she's like, I think, the oldest of the kid. Sort of Nynaeve's age, I always think of her as.
I'm going to look it up. Elmendretta. Barshaw, I forgot that.
So the internet tells me Nynaeve is 26 at the end of 999, and Min is, in quotes, almost Nynaeve's age.
Gotcha.
So 25, 26, maybe not a full year younger, something like that.
A shepherd with a heron-marked sword, said a low woman's voice. It's almost enough to make me believe anything. What trouble are you in, down country boy? I like that everyone keeps calling them that.
Yeah, it must just be with the town, because the town probably has, like, they're on the edge of civilization, and everyone
constantly makes fun of them.
Yeah.
Even the gatekeeper guy in the last chapter was like, "Oh, Mistress Alice, have you taken a collecting down country folk with hay stuck in their hair?"
Yeah.
But there's a cool quote in a second from Min about down country folk.
Yeah.
You are Rand, aren't you? She went on, my name is Min, and they kind of make an introduction. Skipping to the next paragraph. I've heard men talk about you too, Rivers folk. I've heard the jokes about wooden-headed shepherders, and then there are men who have actually been down country.
Wooden-headed what?
Sheep herders. I'm working on it, guys.
I'm not sure I want to go through all 14 books with you saying it shepherder.
I'm a slow learner, but I'm working on it.
I mean, look at the word. There's only one E in the word.
It's just habit. But then she says, the ones who know, she went on as if he had not spoken. See, you walk around all smiles and politeness, just as meek and soft as butter. On the surface, anyway. Underneath, they say, you're all as tough as old oak roots. Prod too hard, they say, and you just dig up a stone. But the stone isn't buried very deep in you, or in your friends, as if a storm has scoured away almost all the covering. Moraine didn't tell me everything, but I see what I see.
And I think about that as like, you've got a group of folks that are farmers, so they're already working hard, not a lot of extra body fat, and they spend a week on the run eating cheese and hardtack. Like, even if they weren't, just in terms of the look of them, I bet they look wiry as hell at this point.
Probably.
And a little just suspicious of everything, looking over the shoulder, they're probably just a little more alert and a little more aware of what's going on around them.
Sharpened a bit.
Yeah, on edge. Rand's carrying that Heron Mark sword.
I think that's what she means in that last line. But I think I like her description of like the cultural and emotional kind of...
Oh, yeah, the Two Rivers people?
Yeah. This is what people say. Here's what people who have actually been there say. So she has a pretty good experience.
She's from Berlon, right?
Yeah.
She's not like from anywhere else and just passing through.
No. I'm pretty sure she's been there all her life. Because she's like a horse hand or something right now. She just takes care of the horses, which means she probably shovels shit for a living.
She's almost never rescued at any point in this series.
No.
She takes care of herself. She shows up. She travels by herself. She helps out Aes Sedai.
Yeah. Give her any trouble, she'll cut you.
Yeah. Although
she will.
Although Tom does kind of laugh at her knife skills, and so does Avienda.
Well, in comparison to Tom and Avienda, I mean...
That's cute. I could have killed you 6 times while you did that.
Yeah.
But she thinks she's doing
I think
it.
for common folk.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's, gonna save her from anyone who doesn't have weapon skills or
Mhm.
you know, and I think
Common thieves. and
common
things.
thieves, and she tosses the knife for good effect a couple of times.
Yeah, I think I'm remembering a scene. Was it in the Aiel Waste when? No, it's not. But I'm just thinking of it that way. It's at some point when Rand like doesn't allow the maidens to protect him, and they like wait until he comes back from one of these little things, and they like kick the door down and beat the shit out of him. But in that scene, I think Min like gets out of bed and flings a knife, and one of the maidens just like slaps it out of.
Oh yeah, I believe
Yeah.
that. I don't
she doesn't
remember
know what's happening.
specifically. Yeah, that's right. And Rand's like, no, let them.
Yeah. I think they pull his shirt over his head and just beat the hell out of him for.
Well, he's being a little shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, no, listen, we follow the rules. You follow the rules too.
Yeah, just like you granted us this honor.
It's funny.
And it's all
They're enforcing the rules on their king.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
they don't have kings.
they're Karakarn.
It's different.
And I think it's all tied up in the fact that he is the lost son of a maiden, and he lets them hold his honor. And
I think that's why they don't do worse. They just rough him up. Like they just hit him.
So they rough him up because he granted them the honor of protecting him.
He's disrespecting them.
Absolutely.
And not honoring the agreement. I mean, there's more to it than just disrespect.
God, yeah, I mean, I think we can... I don't want to get too much into Aiel politics right now.
Yeah, this is like 3 books from now.
We have a lot of research to do before we get into that.
Let's work on chapter 15 of the first book.
Oh, man. All right, so
Min's knife skills.
Min's knife skills. Really, let's avoid knife skills and let's get into Min's really interesting talent, which is her viewings, because we get a whole bunch of them right here, don't we?
Yeah, she runs through a lot of it.
And I want to. Do you mind if we just sort of hit them one by one?
No, that's what I figured we'd do. Oh, I think first I just want to say they're talking about Egwene for a second. And we see Min say, "The girl? Yeah, she's part of it, and the Gleeman. All of you. You're in love with her." He stared at her. "I can tell that even without seeing any images. She loves you too, but she's not for you, or for you for her. Not the way you both want." And she pretty much just leaves it as that. But she knows a lot about Rand's future already.
Well, she's done the reading.
Yeah. So at this point, she already knows that she's going to be with him.
Well, that she'll love him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that all she knows?
That's all she knows. There's at one point she complains about it later where she's like, I didn't choose to love him, and I have no guarantee that he's going to love me back. And I still have to love him, and I foresaw that.
Okay. Yeah. She says, and Min is talking about Moraine, she says, "I see pieces of the pattern." Min gave a little laugh and shook her head. "Sounds too grand to me." Rand shivered. "And what did you see?" Skipping lines again. "When you're all in a group, sparks swirling around you. Thousands of them, and a big shadow, darker than midnight. It's so strong, I almost wonder why everybody can't see it. The sparks are trying to fill the shadow, and the shadow is trying to swallow the sparks." She shrugged. "You're all tied together to something dangerous, but I can't make any more of it."
I had a thought.
Hmm?
What do you assume the shadow is?
The shadow.
The dark one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the shadow. I have to wonder if it's not a little bit of Rand's... Like when we see him up on Dragon Mount, in...
You mean like his sort of duality?
Yeah, the fact that like he has the shadow in him, and if he has an opportunity where he is going to destroy the world, where he needs to learn to feel again, and he's losing that ability. He's getting harder and harder throughout the entire series, and I have to wonder if what everyone is a part of is just that. There are a bunch of sparks of light trying to fill the void in Rand's soul that makes him learn to love again. And that shadow is sort of more the shadow in Rand rather than, quote-unquote, the shadow.
That's an interesting interpretation and makes perfect sense. What, like, it's the shadow and the sparks are 2 parts of himself.
I think of more the shadow being, part of himself, but sparks being also him and everyone around him, like all the people he loves. And that's why he's a part of it and she's a part of it, because as soon as Rand loves these people, they're a part of it because they're part of what's in his heart.
Oh, fuck. That just makes perfect sense. And when they're together, there's more sparks.
Yeah, because there's his
She never
community.
talks about how much bigger the shadow gets.
Well, maybe she does.
We'll see, but I'm pretty sure. I think she definitely mentions like the more of them that are together, the more sparks that are flying through the air.
She'll say sometimes the sparks are winning, and sometimes the shadow is winning, and the more people that are together, the sparks are winning, or they're at least holding their own. I think is what she says.
Yeah, that's great. That's great interpretation.
So, I don't know if that's this podcast is certainly. I feel like I've hit almost every level on these books, and even now, what are we? A couple of, quarter of the way into the first book, and we're. I feel like I'm learning things about the series that I didn't know before, and some of them may be stretches, and I think I've admitted that on several occasions.
Sure, but speculating is fun.
Yeah, and like, how are you going to find new things if you don't go past the borders and then come back every once in a while and be like, how about this absurd thing? No, that's absurd.
Yeah.
How about that absurd thing? Well, that might actually be something like this. I think this is a bit of an absurd theory, but until we find some counter evidence,
I think you might be right.
I'm going to go with it.
And then they have Min says a thing about Egwene. And then Rand says, what do you see when you look at the rest of us?
And this is where we get a whole litany of prophecies.
And almost no interpretation from Min, but we know basically what all of this is at this,
Yeah, so why don't we read them one by one?
Sure.
Read them and then interpret them one by one. And it shouldn't take us too long. Most of these are pretty short.
All sorts of things, Min said, with a grin as if she knew what he really wanted to ask. Master Andra has 7 ruined towers around his head.
Yeah, the
Barely
seven.
needs to say anything.
The 7 towers.
Lord of the 7 Towers.
Lord of the 7 Towers. We know that.
And a babe in a cradle holding a sword, which is Lan.
Which is Lan. Yeah, he was given a sword.
And she shook her head. Men like him, you understand, always have so many images. They crowd one another. The strongest images around the Gleeman are a man, not him, juggling fire. I don't know what that one is.
Owen. Possibly Rand, but a male channeler.
Maybe. Yeah.
Because the juggling fire has to be channeling, and a man, not him. Basically, so a man, not him, channeling, and
Juggling
we know
fire.
that the whole reason Tom is there is because his nephew Owen was a channeler who was gentled.
She says, a man, not him, juggling fire, and the White Tower. And that doesn't make any sense at all for a man.
Well, the White Tower, because the White Tower came after Owen.
The two things are related.
Yeah. And if you think that perhaps Tom taught Owen how to juggle, right? He would teach his nephew how to juggle. And so maybe when he was channeling, one of the ways he discovered he was a channeler is that he created these balls of fire. He was able to juggle those. But it could just be also a representation of a man. There's so many. Mm-hmm. The images aren't literal interpretations. And so a man juggling fire could just stand for a man channeling in Tom's life.
Yeah. And the White Tower, in its looming importance in Tom's life, whether he wants to admit it or not.
Oh, sure.
His entire life revolves around the White Tower.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is funny only because he's always trying to avoid it.
He fails miserably.
Yeah. The strongest things I see about the big curly-haired fellow are a wolf. Obvious.
Yeah, Wolf Brother. And a broken crown. That's interesting. I was wondering if it's about Manetheren. That's my thought, is the crown. He basically picks up the broken crown of Manetheren and becomes the new king.
That's what I thought.
Of Manetheren, yeah.
And trees flowering all around him.
I don't really have a specific interpretation for that one, other than,
Me neither.
Maybe Ogier. He's sort of friends with Ogier, and
yeah,
I don't know. And he's just in the forest, and
doesn't he make some kind of agreement with the Ogier to revitalize the steading outside of the 2 rivers? There's a steading.
Oh gosh, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Because there's the Waystone, so there has to be a steading there.
I don't. Waygate is inside the Waystone.
Waygate.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, Waygate. Right.
He is closer with the Ogier than any of the other characters.
Sure.
And the other one, I like how she just leaves it at that.
And Matt. No, all the women are just like, Matt. That one.
A red eagle.
Well, the red eagle of
Manetherin.
Manetherin. Yeah.
An eye on a balance scale. This is a little deeper than the other ones.
Yeah. I mean, this is him. I mean, this goes into the final book in terms of prophecy.
Yeah.
Because this is when he gets his eye plucked out, right?
And is the eye like he's trading his eye in payment? And I'm thinking of the balance scales as like a merchant's scales.
Yeah, 100%. That's he gives up half the light of the world to save the world. He gives up an eye to bring Moraine back. Mm-hmm. And the balance scale is balancing the eye against the world.
Yeah, like a merchant, he's trading it.
So this is going into him entering the Tower of Ganji and sacrificing his eye. He, from this point, that is foreshadowed.
Yeah.
Right?
Nuts.
Right?
Yeah. Page 216 of the paperback. I know lots of copies are different, but yeah. Page 200 out of like 15,000 pages, and we're already, yeah.
That's why we love the series.
A dagger with a ruby.
Right, the dagger from...
That happens in like a minute.
Shadow Logoth, right. Next episode.
A horn.
The Horn of Valir.
Yeah.
Which he blows.
And a laughing face. I think that's just Matt.
I do too. I don't have a good other... Yeah, I mean, just the fact that he's sort of the Joker of the series.
Yeah.
And I sort of picture... the like comedy tragedy faces masks?
Mm-hmm.
I sort of picture that being the comedy, that smiling face.
He's a funny character.
Yeah.
He never seems terribly serious, except for when he's very scared, he gets a little serious. But he doesn't...
He's so lucky.
He's like always screwing around.
He doesn't have to take things seriously because he can depend on his luck to save him. He can just like leave things up to chance, and he always comes out on top. And that lets him be a little more cavalier about certain things. I would be more cavalier about my job if I could walk into any gambling establishment and win a couple $1,000,000 in a night and know that I could do that at any time. I wouldn't worry so much about keeping my job. I wouldn't worry so much about offending people, there's a certain freedom that comes with being lucky. And Matt is that to a extreme.
Yeah, whenever I think about Matt's luck, I always think about a scene. I think it happens to him when he's in Tarvalin. It might be way later though. I'm not sure. But he gets jumped by like a dark friend or just like a bunch of dudes trying to rob him or something, and they fall off the side of a bridge.
That's the first night in Tarvalin. That's the night he realizes he can win anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that
whole scene. Like, it's just this crazy night for him.
Yeah.
Like, where he goes out, he gambles, he wins everything.
Some guy tries to jump him for it.
Right.
And he falls off a bridge and like lands on top of the dude, like or something like that, with the knife already stabbing him.
Yeah.
Or something.
He uses
the guy's own knife.
The guy's own knife.
Yeah.
He uses the dude basically as a cushion.
And he falls on top of the hill, so he kills him, and the guy saves his life at the same time.
Right, because Matt basically crushes the guy's ribs and uses his ribs as a...
Yeah, like it couldn't possibly have gone better.
No. But, that's the night where Matt can't lose. That is his luck is never that good again.
Oh, I just lost my place because we were talking about that for a second.
Just Matt. There are other things, but you see what I mean. This time I can't make up and down of any of it. She waited then, still grinning, until he finally cleared his throat and asked,
"What about me?"
Yeah. Because she knows. She knows everybody always asks about themselves.
Yeah.
Always.
Her grin stopped just short of outright laughter. The same kind of things as the rest. A sword that isn't a sword. It's Kalendor.
Yeah.
A golden crown of laurel leaves, which is the crown of Ilion. I think that happened. Oh no, that's the crown of swords.
The crown of swords. Which isn't that the crown of Ilion?
A golden crown of laurel leaves? Is it? No, I thought it...
It's got swords pointing up and down in it, but I think it's laurel leaves with swords in it.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
A beggar's staff. What is that? That I didn't...
There is a period of time in the final 3 books where Rand is in hiding with Min, and he basically walks around with a beggar's staff. It's very short. You don't actually see him. You just see him like throw the staff away.
Oh,
But there is a period of time. It's the whole Fisher King legend.
I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
'Cause you know a little more about that than I do. I think if that has anything to do with the Fisher King, the staff. I think it might.
It's definitely the beggar's staff to me is part of the Fisher King legend.
Could play into a lot of old myths too. I mean, I think it's more associated with Odin, but the like if someone were to come to your table on certain days, you have to let them eat because it could be Odin, and if you don't feed them, like, but there are other myths and legends like that.
Even what is it, Beauty and the Beast, which is the movie came out recently.
Really?
They did a live action
They
movie.
redid one?
Yeah, totally.
I didn't know that.
But in the original one, he's cursed because he's mean to a traveling woman, a traveling beggar.
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty common trope in
Yeah.
European legends
Totally.
for one reason or another.
Yeah, be nice to travelers. I mean, I feel like that's
Probably in other legends too.
Yeah.
I'm just most familiar with those.
there didn't used to be hotels and like
Yeah.
so. And as we know, if you've ever traveled on a plane, traveling sucks.
Sword that wasn't a sword. Crown of laurel leaves, beggar's staff. You pouring water on sand. I saw as about Ruidian and the Aiel. Or bringing them to life, also.
Possibly. But specifically, I think it's about him opening up the lake in Ruidion
Yeah.
and bringing the water to the surface
Mhm.
and creating a lake there and basically creating that city by opening the water source because people are going to flock there after he does that. And
Yeah. A bloody hand and a white hot iron. That's Rand's own hand, I
Right.
figure.
And when he loses the hand to Semirog,
Oh, yeah. That could be it.
that the white hot iron is just her fire. And sort of the way he, at that time, he also, becomes super hard. And, that's such a pivotal point for him when he starts using the true power. And that's specifically when he loses his hand and kills a woman. It's the first time he ever kills a woman, too.
When he loses his hand?
He kills Semirog. Yeah.
Oh, you mean directly?
Yeah, the first time he actively kills a woman.
No. Doesn't he kill a woman, like, on his way to Tyr? The, like, merchant?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's the only one I can actually think of that he directly kills. But he goes through this whole ridiculous phase where he just blames himself for the death of every woman that ever died that was near him.
That's interesting. I totally forgot about her because I don't think she's on the list because the list starts with Moraine.
Oh.
And that's after.
He
doesn't put her on the list.
Probably the only reason that popped into my head is because I was thinking about how he goes through the phase where, because a couple podcasts ago we were talking about how he loses his father's sword or it's destroyed, and then he goes through the whole phase where he still is like fighting with a sword, but it's the one made out of fire,
Right.
and then until he gets the new one, when he's alone and he's like trying to separate himself and just go to Tyr by himself.
Yeah, during the Dragon Reborn when he's fleeing to pick up Kalendor and see if he actually is the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah.
And he's a little nuts during that time. That's going to be an interesting chapter to talk
a woman,
about.
right?
Yeah, there's at least one
it was.
woman. Yeah, and he lays all the bodies out. Maybe he adds her to it later, just the unnamed woman in the card or something like that. But he doesn't start the list until Moraine dies. But he may, because he certainly puts Ilyena on it, and that's retroactive.
Oh.
Well, Lewis Theron puts Ilyena on it.
Geez, I kind of forgot about this whole phase. It's
Where Rand's absolutely insane.
a little annoying.
Yeah.
We try not to be negative about stuff, but yeah,
that part drives you nuts.
When Rand is going insane.
Oh, I love it.
Really?
Yeah.
Ah, drives me nuts. I just want him to get everything right, I guess.
I honestly, that's what makes Rand the most interesting to me. Rand becomes an interesting character to me when he gets put in the box.
complex evolution, to say the least. Yeah. He's like totally fucking nuts after that for a while. Like really out of his mind.
Yeah.
Like all these scenes where you're in his head basically, and he's like watching everyone watching him, and he'll just start arguing with Luz Theron in front of everyone.
Right.
Who's not there.
Right.
And
isn't real.
and everybody's just staring at him, and like
And
there's all these scenes where nobody says anything.
And he'll be like, no, I'm not crazy yet. And everyone's like, yeah, you are.
And I kind of figure that it's like all these High Lords and whatever are like, what are you going to say to the Dragon Reborn? I don't know why I've been cursing so much this episode. What are you going to say to the Dragon Reborn? Nothing. You keep your mouth shut. And like that's what's happening through all those. But it's just painful to watch, I guess.
It is painful, but I love that pain. Feels so good.
I think there's one or two more things. A bloody hand and a white hot iron. 3 women standing over your funeral bier. Is that how you say that?
Funeral buyer?
Funeral bier. With you on it.
It kind of rhymes with fire.
Sounds good to
Yeah.
me.
That's one of those words I've read, but I've never actually heard.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I'm just realizing that right now. So that's obviously Min, Avienda, and Elaine, and Rand does die. So
Yeah, well, his body does.
Right.
But it's actually Ishmael in that body.
right.
Yeah.
Black rock wet with blood. That's his blood on the rocks of Sheol Ghul.
Right. Split from the wound in his side.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is there any more? Well,
Um,
not of Rand.
Yeah,
but-
one more. Most of all, I see lightning around you, some striking at you, some coming out of you.
That one I really wasn't sure about.
It could be anything from him attacking Forsaken and them attacking him to actual literal lightning that he casts to any sort of attack, any sort of counterattack. That's a
To do
little
with the
vague.
storm.
Yeah. I see all of these like bolts of lightning coming in and out and just being constantly attacked and counterattacked.
Sounds good to me. And I don't know what any of that means, except for one thing. You and I will meet again. She gave him a quizzical look, as if she did not understand that either. Why shouldn't we, he said. I'll be coming back this way on my way home. I suppose you will at that. Suddenly her grin was back, wry and mysterious. She patted his cheek. But if I told you everything I saw, you'd be as curly-haired as your friend with the shoulders. He jerked back from her hand as if it was red hot. What do you mean? Do you see anything about rats or dreams? Rats? No. As for dreams, maybe it's your idea of a dream, but I never thought it would be mine.
Yeah.
She's like, and now Rand's just like backing away, and he's like, this is getting really weird.
She's
And-
flirting hardcore, though. She's like, I'll curl your hair, and you might think it's a dream.
She's like, if I told you the rest. Anything about dreams? And she's like, well, it's not my idea of a dream.
Yeah,
Might be yours, I guess.
I guess, if you think I'm hot, but
Yeah.
that takes some self-confidence
I figure
to say that.
she's almost like she's telling a joke to herself, because she knows that nobody else, she doesn't tell anyone else that.
That's true. Yeah, not at first.
I doubt she even told Moraine that, like, and I'm gonna sleep with that one.
Oh, yeah, no, she totally didn't
Yeah.
tell him. Because she doesn't want Moraine to have that hook into her. Because, like, she knows that's a way
She
to
doesn't-
control her.
She doesn't want anyone to know.
No.
She knows it's going to happen.
Yeah, but she doesn't love him yet. But, like, you know, you meet someone you find attractive for the first time, and, like, you know you're going to, you know, it's that, like,
Mhm.
oh,
She's
man.
almost kind of talking like he understands,
Right.
as well, even though he doesn't. But she's also kind of like shrugging it off. It doesn't matter. She knows it doesn't matter. Like, no matter what she says or does, all her visions come true.
Right.
Always. So
So she's going to love him.
it's like, well, it might be your idea of a good time.
But, well, and she resists so much that she doesn't want to be, she's such an independent person. She doesn't want to be
Yeah, she
indebted to any man. And she says that so often that I don't want to
Well,
be
you know,
a
she is
simpering
at this
idiot.
point. But later she's never a simpering idiot. But later she really is attached to Rand.
Yeah.
She's the closest thing he has to a real wife.
Yeah.
The other ones are, or I guess I should say a traditional wife. The other ones are sort of off doing their own thing in a lot of cases.
And she complains about it bitterly. She is really
Oh,
upset.
that she's the one that
Yeah.
has to be attached to him all the time?
Not that she's attached, but just that like she has to do things because of Rand. Like, her whole like whenever she's with the Aes Sedai and like scrubbing pots or like being punished, she's always like, "Oh, that Rand, it gets me in these situations. I wouldn't be in this situation if it wasn't for men." And when she says men, she means Rand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She blames him for it, but she knows.
Not literally. I
realistically
mean,
that-
it's definitely in her own head. Yeah.
No. I know what you're saying. She does say that a lot. He didn't exactly break into a run, but every step he took was quicker than the step before. "Run if you want," she called after him. "You can't escape from me." Her laughter sped him across the stable yard and out into the street. So she's just like, she's telling a joke, but she's the only one laughing.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Yeah.
He can't escape from her.
I feel like it's a little bit of desperate laughter. She sees
Yeah.
herself being trapped and she's like, "He can't escape and I can't either. Oh
Yeah.
God." No one can escape. I know this is going to happen. Oh no.
And that's a creepy thing to say, and
Yeah.
it doesn't even matter.
Right. As he's running, he goes wherever chance and the shifting of the crowd may take him. And whenever I hear someone say something about, "Oh, I go where chance may take me," I immediately think, Taviran.
Yeah. And so he accidentally almost shoulder checks Padden Fane.
You know, at this point, Fane's just like a powerless dark friend. Right? But he is forced to follow Rand. And so he's been running. I had a thought that maybe the reason he couldn't go back for his horse and cart is because Rand took off. And he, instead of going back for his horse and cart and his belongings, he was forced to follow Rand before he could go back for them. Because Master Alvir has his horse.
Yeah. He mentions that in this scene that
Yeah.
Master Alvir still has the horses. And Rand's like, "Well, it's not a problem. Like, Master Alvir is a very honest man. You can go back anytime and
Right.
get them."
And Fane's like, "No, I can't."
Yeah. And Rand's just totally confused by the whole exchange.
Yeah.
That makes me wonder if, say, the Myrddraal had the Trollocs torch the wagon to put Fane in his place.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some infighting there.
Run with the Trollocs.
Yeah.
But he doesn't
Yeah.
run with the Trollocs. We don't hear about how he crosses the Terran.
No, we don't.
But he's right on their heels. This is only like a half a day after, maybe one day after they arrive in Berlon.
Yeah.
They were on horseback, our party. That's to run that far is...
And they're running hard for a lot of it.
Yeah, it's tough for me to estimate what you can do on horseback. I have no experience with that.
Mhm.
But I figure... I'm hesitating to make assumptions. But I I would put a small amount of money down that I know someone who could probably travel further in a day than a horse could. I wonder if I could do it.
Horses have serious issues in terms of the amount of time they need to rest and the amount of time they need to feed.
And terrain. Or they can do terrain, but it wears them out faster than it wears us out.
Over the long haul, people can always out-marathon horses.
Mm-hmm. Especially when it's hot out, but it's not.
When you go back to the fact that we were endurance hunters,
Right.
and the fact that we evolved to chase down animals and exhaust them.
That's I've talked about this a little before, but I sort of got into running after I became fascinated with the Aiel when I learned about them, and this idea that that they could run a horse to death, like chase a group of horsemen down until the horses pass out, and then they just walk up and kill them.
Yeah, that's not a fictional thing.
No, it's not. I found because I'm sure I looked it up at one point, and I found there's like a bunch of cool races. There's a few in Europe. I'm willing to bet there's some in the States somewhere, but they're usually called a man versus horse marathon, and they usually take place in like July, like a pretty hot month. And it's a horse with horses with riders, and single people alone are allowed to enter. And you just see who is the fastest, the horse with a rider or a person. And
What's the distance?
A marathon.
Okay. I feel like a marathon is a pretty short distance to do that competition on.
It is, but the thing is that, I mean, to maintain like somewhere around, a good runner could maintain somewhere around 8 or 9 miles an hour for 4 hours when it's 90 degrees out. And you can see that usually the horse wins if it's cool out. But if it's above a certain temperature, the humans start winning pretty consistently. And that's the separation.
We're better sweaters.
Yeah.
We have less surface area exposed to the sun, and 2 legs are more efficient than 4 over the long haul. Just not faster.
Right. Well, that's what I got into it. I was like, I want to outrun a horse in a marathon. And I still would love to try that race one day. I still haven't ran a whole marathon, but.
So right here, I think Rand tells Fane exactly where to find him.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what he shouldn't have done. Because later when they're attacked...
Of course, he has no idea what's going on. So he's just like, oh, you had a bad time? Like, well, we kind of did too. We got a room over here. Like, you want dinner?
Yeah.
We'll grab you a beer and some food, man.
Yeah. And then Fane makes all sorts of sketchy statements about, yes, that could work. Excellent.
Yeah, he's like really creepy and weird.
Totally sketchy. And then he's like, yes, I'll see you tonight. I mean, my Trollocs will see you tonight. I mean,
and then he just runs away. Yeah.
It's just the sketchiest. So I'm not sure if it's the next chapter or the chapter after that, but whenever they get attacked.
Once I got to the dialogue with Min, I was like, oh shit, this is going to take a while.
Yeah.
Because I knew we were going to want to go through each one.
Absolutely.
And talk about each not foretelling.
Prophecy?
Yeah. Omen?
Omen. I like Omen.
What does Tuan call Min?
Doomsayer.
Doomsayer, that's it. But she gives her the position of truth speaker.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
But you don't have to be a doomsayer to be a truth speaker.
Yeah.
There are lots of truth speakers. I think Suroth is her truth speaker now, and a dark friend.
Is it Suroth?
Suroth or, oh gosh.
No, I think it's the other.
The other one.
She always has her truth speaker with her.
Yeah.
I cannot remember the name of that character.
Yeah, that's...
We'll also get there in like a year and a half.
Yeah. Well, I'm
probably literally.
I think we're like, well, no, because we're at 6 months per book at the rate we're going, and Sean Channer in book 2.
That's true. Do we meet Tuan in book 2?
No. But she's referenced.
Yeah. Oh, so Fane runs off after a confusing exchange. And Rand tries to run after him and almost runs right into Matt, who had just also tried to talk to Padden Fane, who ran off again. And they talk for a second here and realize Matt also had the same dream.
Right. He also, we're talking about this sickness. Well, this is where it really starts to pick up steam. This is his channeling sickness. We sort of talked about it earlier, how he had the headache, and then we had this whole interaction with Min, and that sort of took us on some tangents. But Rand's still sick and getting sicker here. His voice rang in his ears. If he was getting sick, he might have to go to Moraine. He was surprised that even the thought of the one power being used on him did not bother him. And that sort of... that first of symptoms, he's starting to sort of not care. He's not sort of having the appropriate emotions. He should be bothered by the one power being used on him, but he's not. He's just like, yeah, I guess that's fine. And that's not typical for him at this point in the story.
Yeah. Interesting. Sag, see, I just passed over that line.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you were reading this chapter with that in mind. Because I actually thought he might be channeling, sometimes he has these strange feelings through this chapter and stuff.
No, this is all the sick. It's all the sickness.
When he starts to feel really giddy,
it's all the sickness.
We're almost there.
Yeah,
it's like the third time I did that. I thought it was interesting that Rand starts explaining things to Matt, and Matt calls Min a soothsayer, and I thought it was a little interesting that he had a term and understood what might be happening there.
Yeah, I just think that's a generic term for anyone who's telling the future.
Right. I saw it as kind of like wisdom is to female Chandler as soothsayer is to, it's like a more vague term where he clearly doesn't really understand, but
Oh no, yeah, it's a colloquial term for something that's generally said among the villagers for someone who could,
makes sense.
You're a wizard, you're a soothsayer, you're a witch, whatever. That's just a generic title, I think, like that.
3 men in breastplates with conical steel caps, burnished till they shone like silver, were making their way down the street toward Rand and Matt. Matt says, "Do you suppose they're children of the light?" Matt asked in a loud voice.
Yep, they sure are.
Passerby looked hard at Matt, then quickened his pace. Just for saying, "Do you think those are children of the light?"
Yeah. Oh, I've got a few more things before that. A discussion about the fairy, and this is where that threat from Moraine really comes into play, because they're talking about whether or not to tell her, and Matt says, "Remember the fairy?" I say we keep quiet. Rand remembered the fairy and Moraine's threat too, but somehow it seemed a long time ago. So that right there, they're specifically thinking like, should we tell Moraine? He's like, no, remember that threat? Like if we tell her, she might kill us.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely in their mind.
Yeah. So that's just sort of when we were talking about that threat earlier and how it really prevented them from telling her their dreams. That right there is where that happens and comes back to haunt her.
Oh man, there's so much here that I missed now that you're pointing some of this stuff out. She didn't say she's a soothsayer, Rand said. I believe she does see things. Remember, Moraine was talking to her when we finished our baths, and she knows who Moraine is. Matt frowned at him. I thought we weren't supposed to use that name. No, Rand muttered. He rubbed his head with both hands. It was so hard to concentrate on anything. I think maybe you really are sick, Matt said, still frowning. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to hit there, but yeah, I'm seeing a bunch now. I knew that Rand felt like crap, but I just kind of attributed all to the dream and to traveling.
Yeah, no, it's all post. It's a week later, and he's suffering that post channeling sickness.
No, that's such a good point. I'm really glad he said that.
I think I have a cold, Rand said. His head was as tight as a drum and almost as empty. So he's got a headache.
And he describes his head as not just tight, but empty.
Right.
So he's like having trouble focusing and staying on point.
To bring up what Moraine says, perhaps a fever or chills, headaches and numbness and exhilaration all mixed together, and foolish chances are acting giddy. Yeah. So that's really what we're hitting here is this,
like all those things.
Headache and numbness and exhilaration. And that exhilaration is coming because we're about to encounter the White Cloaks.
They don't look like too much to me, Matt said. Full of themselves, though, aren't they?
And then Matt, of course, has to take him down a peg or two. This is sort of the childish Matt before he really matures, where he just gets into trouble for no reason other than to just like tweak somebody's nose.
Yeah, I've said it a bunch of times before, but Matt's my favorite character. And yeah, they don't look like so much to me, Matt said. And Rand says, they don't matter. Rand said, the end. We have to talk to Perrin. Yeah, he does sound like...
Oh, yeah. He sounds a little stoned, a little out of it. Totally. He's unable to respond correctly. Oh, here's a quote. I should be afraid or curious, something at any rate. And instead, he stared at them passively.
Yeah. And then in this exchange, like Eward Conger, he always had his nose up in the air, too. Suddenly, Matt grinned, a twinkle in his eye. Remember when he fell off the wagon bridge and had to tramp home dripping wet? That took him down a peg for a month. What does that have to do with Perrin? See that? Matt pointed to a cart resting... It just ignores him. See that? Matt said, pointing to a cart resting on a shaft in an alleyway. Just ahead of the children, a single stake held a dozen stacked barrels in place on the flat bed. Watch! Laughing, he darted into a cutler shop to the left. In a minute, Matt appeared above him, climbing half out of an attic window onto the tile roof of the shop. His sling was in his hands, already beginning to whirl. Rand's eyes went back to the cart. Almost immediately, there was a sharp crack, and the stake holding the barrels broke just as the White Cloaks came abreast of the alley. People jumped out of the way as the barrels rolled down the cart shafts with an empty rumble and jounced into the street, splashing mud and muddy water in every direction. The three children jumped no less quickly than anyone else. Their superior looks replaced by surprise. They could not avoid the flying mud that splattered their white cloaks, though.
But no, Matt really would have gotten away with it. They aren't able to identify. Like, it's just like,
No.
they think just the stave broke and it was totally coincidence. And if Rand had responded appropriately and kept his mouth shut, everything would have been totally fine.
And raising my eyebrows at the same time. Yeah. I didn't think about it. It had been an easy shot for a Two Rivers lad, but the effect was certainly all that could be hoped for. He could not help laughing. The humor seemed to be wrapped in wool, but it was still funny. When he turned back to the street, the three white cloaks were staring at him. You find something funny? The one spoke. The one who spoke stood a little in front of the others. Rand's laughter cut off short. Skipping around. Does fear of the light hold your tongue? Anger made the white cloak's narrow face seem even more pinched. Perhaps you were responsible for this. Unlike the others, he had a golden knot beneath the sunburst on his cloak. Is that rank?
That's rank.
Okay. Rand moved to cover the sword, but instead swept his cloak back over his shoulder. He doesn't even know what he's doing.
He's just being brazen and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the back of the head was a frantic wonder at what he was doing, but it was a distant thought. Accidents happen, he said, even to the children of the light. Just flat-faced.
Yeah.
The narrow face.
He's like threatening soldiers. He's like a farm boy with a sword he doesn't know how to use, and he's threatening soldiers.
Yeah. The narrow-faced man raised an eyebrow. You are that dangerous, youngling? He was not much older than Rand. Herrenmark, Lord Bornhold, one of the others said warningly. He's too young. You're not from this place, he said coldly to Rand. You come from where? I just arrived in Berlon. You wouldn't know of a good inn, would you? You avoid my questions, Bornhold snapped. What evil is this that you will not answer me? The tingling filled Rand, the heat that had grown to a fever. He wanted to laugh. It felt so good. A small voice in his head shouted that something was wrong, but all he could think of was how full of energy he felt, nearly bursting with it. Smiling, he rocked on his heels and waited for what was going to happen. Vaguely, distantly, he wondered what it would be.
Let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
Headaches and numbness and exhilaration all mixed together. Like, that's that exhilaration, that warm, tingling sensation that's coming. That, like...
No, that really brings everything together, because there was a couple of things... Like, before I realized that, this is the channeling sickness. There are a couple of things in this chapter that didn't really make too much sense to me, but I just kind of shrugged it off, and I thought in this scene he must be channeling, and I was trying to figure out what he did, but there isn't anything.
No.
Nothing happens.
No. He's just going nuts, basically. I mean, he's just feeling the effects.
Yeah.
Nothing happens to anybody else. It's just him.
Yeah, I really like that. Vaguely, distantly. He wondered what it would be. He's like so stoned right now. When the children of the light ask questions, you gray-eyed bumpkin, we expect answers, or... He cut off as the narrow-faced man threw an arm across his chest, and the town watch shows up and just kind of looks at the children of the light, and they kind of walk away.
They're not in favor in the city.
No.
And since they can't bring the rest of their troops in, they don't have the muscle.
I like that the police in Berlin carry quarterstaffs. I thought it was...
Sort of like the Billy Club of law enforcement.
Yeah. Billy Club of the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
6 feet long.
And then I think the giddiness is gone. He describes it being gone all at once, like a bubble popping. That's sort of the end of his channeling sickness. It comes and then it pops and it's gone.
It happens in a second, I think. There's a couple of paragraphs of the White Cloaks being huffy. Rand still rocked on his heels, waiting. The tingle was so strong that he almost quivered. He felt as if he were burning. Matt came out of the shop, staring at him. You aren't sick, he said finally. You're crazy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Speaking of going crazy, like, again, a little bit of foreshadowing there, like, Rand's going crazy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Slowly. It's starting now.
Yeah.
Well,
this is something else.
The very beginning.
Yeah. This is something that happens to both men and women, so it's not to do with the taint. This is just...
Well, I just mean him channeling and the process.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's begun.
Then they run into Tom.
Yeah, they go to him for advice now that he must be done in the common room.
No, they're outside somewhere. Tom ends up not very far from where they are, and they kind of turn to walk away, and they run into him.
He must have followed Rand.
Do you think? I mean, maybe. Oh, yeah, he's telling a story in the inn when Rand leaves.
Yeah.
And abruptly it was gone like a prick bubble. He staggered as it vanished. The realization of what he had just done flooding in on him. Licking his lips, he met Matt's stare. I think we had better go back to the inn, he said unsteadily. Yeah, I think we should, essentially. Street began to fill up again. And he says, maybe the dreams are making me crazy. The two lost their way several times in the haphazard streets, but after a while they fell in with Tom Maryland, making a grand procession all by himself through the throng. The gleeman said he was out to stretch his legs for a bit of fresh air, but whenever anyone looked twice at his colorful cloak, he would announce in a resounding voice, I'm at the Stag and the Lion tonight only. He probably is following them. He's not just out there advertising.
Why not both?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great cover.
Yeah.
He probably is looking after them.
Yeah. And once they get lost, he runs into them.
I can kind of see Tom doing something like that too. Like, oh no, I'm just going out to do this thing. But the whole time he's keeping an eyeball on.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, he talks about how, like, the country boys in a city, like, and laughs at them and then looks out for them.
Yeah. Tom's great. Such a good guy.
Talking about him. And I was like, wait, wasn't he just in the common room? Like, wouldn't he have been there? I mean, I guess Rand wanders for a while, and then Matt, they wander together for a while. And, like, there's enough time passing that maybe Tom finished up with his business and came outside.
I thought it was a little suspicious that they get lost, and then Tom shows up.
Yeah, just randomly. And it might also be a pretty small city. I mean, it's a town. Yeah. So I could also see Tom just being out there wandering, looking for them.
It was Matt who began disjointedly telling Tom about the dream, and their worry over whether or not to tell Moraine, but Rand joined in, for there were differences in exactly how they remembered it. Or maybe each dream was a little different, he thought. Oh, or there isn't much else about the dreams. But they start talking to Tom about the Children of the Light, and then Rand starts mentioning all the names that Ishmael said to him in the dream.
Mm-hmm. I had a quote about that.
Tom says something like, all right, tell me everything about this weird dream that you both had. And he's like, well, he mentioned Rowland Darksbane and blah, 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 and Gwaira Malasan and all this. And Tom says something like, those are all very dangerous names. Like, don't say them out loud ever again.
He says, men who shook the pillars of heaven and rocked the world on its foundations. It doesn't matter. Forget about them. They're dust now.
Yeah.
And they're all the false dragons. And Tom knows that. He knows they're all false dragons.
Well, I mean, one of them is Arthur Hawkwing, but he was also, I think one of them is Arthur Hawkwing.
I don't think so.
Well, might be wrong. Wouldn't be the first time.
Because he wasn't a false dragon, and I'm pretty sure it's all false dragons.
Yep. Yeah. In this dialogue,
Ishmael talks about Arthur Hawkwing in the dream, but not in this.
That's
false
what
dragon. Yeah,
doing there. Gwaira Malasan, Rowland Darksbane, Davian, Matt added before he could go on, and Urian Stonebow, and Loghain. Rand finished. Dangerous names, Tom muttered. Were they used like he said? Matt asked, and killed. You might say the White Tower killed them.
Yeah, because they
you
gentled
might say
them,
that,
right? And gentling leads to their death. So I think that's when he's saying you might say that is like, well, the White Tower gentled them. They didn't kill them. Yeah. They gentled them, and that led to their death.
Tom's mouth tightened momentarily, and then he shook his head again. But used? No, I can't see that. The Light knows the Emerald Seed has enough plots going, but I can't see that. So Tom's sort of suggesting, and I think he's musing out loud and being truthful there. Tom is suggesting that he thinks it's more likely that like these types of things pop up, like Gwaira Malasan, and then the White Tower spins it to the best of its ability, or profitable or good for the White Tower. So like not necessarily in control of every event, but they will spin it.
And then they sort of ask his advice on whether or not to tell Moraine about the dreams after he hears all about them. And this is sort of the final nail in the coffin for telling Moraine about the dreams, because they're already thinking they're not going to do it. And here Tom, who admittedly has very little trust in Aes Sedai, says, I say hold your peace. Don't tell anyone for a time at least. You can always change your mind if you have to. But once you tell, it's done. You're tied up worse than ever with her.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually, when I was reading this again, I thought that was actually pretty good advice. He's like, once you do it, you can't take it back. So think about it. Think about this first.
It's good advice, but they don't really think about it enough. They
Yeah.
never really, they need to tell her.
We know in hindsight that if they just told her now,
Right.
it would
have helped.
Yeah.
But they all find their own protection in time.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking the other day, what is Matt's? Why is Matt protected from the dream world?
The medallion.
Is it?
I think so.
I mean, it makes sense as far as timing.
Or, but he's also protected from Ishmael by the dagger. Because it's the evil of Shadar Logoth is an antithesis to the evil of the Dark One. And so
He's like
Ishmael,
untouchable.
Ishmael can't find him as long as he's part of. So once they go through Shadar Logoth, Matt no longer has any dreams. And after Shadar Logoth, Perrin finds the wolves, and so he no longer has any dreams.
Well, he has protectors. Like
Yeah.
He can't get pulled into the dream shard anymore.
Right.
And Rand learns to protect himself
But much
with like
later.
a shield
Much later.
in the Aiel Waste.
Because that's book 4.
Yeah, from Rasmodium.
And so they head back to the inn, and who's waiting for them?
Nynaeve.
Hi, Nynaeve.
They just hear outside, like Perrin is just walking out to go look for them as they're walking in, and they just have a short conversation. She came after us, Perrin said. She's with Mistress Alice right now. Can we just go somewhere else for a while? Matt asked. My dad says, only a fool puts his hand in a hornet's nest unless he absolutely has to.
Definitely a hornet's nest going on there.
Yeah, it's a good line.
That's a good line. Yeah.
Can we go somewhere
Can we
else?
get the hell out of here?
Chapter 15. But first, me and Seth were just trying to figure out some of the logistics. Me, Seth, and Seth's girlfriend Jessica are going to take this bike ride out in August 20th or so. There's going to be a full solar eclipse up here in the Pacific Northwest, not too far outside of Portland. We'll be able to see it. So we're going to ride our bikes out to this farmer's field who's renting it out and set up some tents and
put on some glasses and stare at the sun for a couple
and
hours.
Look at the sky for a long time.
Yeah. Enjoy the wonder of the universe that we live in.
Yeah. Maybe I could get. I think I know someone who might want to come.
Yeah, we have room for one more.
Yeah. And I have 3 tents.
Yeah. Yeah, more than enough.
I have a selection of types and.
But yeah, it's going to be fun to bike 40 miles and be out in the field. And we were just talking about how much we were looking forward to getting out of the city.
Yeah. And we were just saying, or Seth was just saying, like, even if it's cloudy and we can't even see it, it'll still be fun to just go for the bike ride, camp, and come back.
Right, yeah. We do it all the time when there's not an eclipse. So
yeah.
The eclipse is a perfect reason
we don't even
to do
camp and hang out. We just do the ride.
Yeah.
Go home.
That's true. Yeah, we've done that a couple of times.
Yeah. I definitely want to do more stuff with my bike this year.
Yeah.
Still have to buy panniers, so sometime in the next month and a half, I gotta figure that out.
Shouldn't
Probably
be too hard.
Amazon. I'll find the cheapest.
The basement of REI. Have you ever had any luck with that?
At REI?
Or Next Adventure?
No, I was actually there today. I didn't see any panniers. I need to get some short socks. I only had like warm socks left.
Oh, I probably need some short socks. Yeah, because I've got all long ones.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll probably go online and buy like a nice high quality pair because I feel like I'll use them and keep them for a long time, you know? that's something that is probably worth investing a little bit in.
You like your synthetic underwear and socks.
Yeah, I'm very serious about my socks, guys.
He's very serious about his
put
socks.
wool on my feet.
We're talking about like going for the night, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to bring a whole lot. And Patrick's like, I'm bringing socks.
I'll bring like 2 pairs of extra socks. Like the rest of the clothes don't really matter. But I hate wearing crispy socks, and and like, you know, that like third day you wear them, like I hate that.
Oh. And it's a recipe for athlete's foot.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, as someone who's like, I go backpacking and camping and stuff, I just always bring enough socks so that you can wash 2 pair, put on a clean pair, and like let them dry on the back of your pack.
Yeah. How does that work when it's raining?
Great. I mean, if you don't mind putting on wet socks, which is fine with me.
Okay.
As long as they're clean and not like that foot cheese smell and everything. I hate that.
You're really selling the camping adventure here.
Which is why wool, it takes way longer to get smelly and gross and crispy. But when it does, it's durable enough to like wash on a rock in a river.
Isn't wool itchy?
Mm-mm. I'm wearing these socks are wool right now. I'm showing Seth my sock.
Oh, wow. That looks like a synthetic to me.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there's definitely elastic in it, but it's like 90. I wear the Darn Tough brand.
Okay.
Which is the only sock company, guys, with a lifetime guarantee. If you wear a hole in their socks, you send it back and they'll send you a new pair. For real.
For real?
They're also $15 a pair. So it's kind of an investment, but
go ahead and send me a pair for the endorsement, and I'll try them out.
I endorse them for free.
Yeah, I think
they only have Darn Tough socks.
See, that's what I really need to get into is a sock and underwear buying spree, because I just have the crappy, Sears bought, Costco bought underwear that's like that has served me most of my life. You know,
it never mattered to me until I hiked the Appalachian Trail, and even then, it wasn't until like July where I was finally like, "Oh, synthetics and wool, I get it now," because cotton just absorbs the sweat and holds it, and then you're just wearing wet socks and underwear for days. And it's hot, you're sweating, and you're just wearing this like shitty, twisted, wet piece of fraying cotton. It's just, there's no point. You might as well just not wear underwear.
You're taking me back to my days in Houston. That swamp ass I used to get just walking from the car to the buildings in between the air conditioning. And once you're wet, like your underwear just bunches up in uncomfortable places, and there's just nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. It's June now. This podcast will probably only get released a couple of weeks from when we record it, but
yeah, I think we're 3 weeks out at this point.
Yeah, it's June now. Man, we've had some crazy hot days. I was just telling Seth earlier that I was like sitting in my apartment, just pouring sweat, just reading.
Yeah, I gave in and finally bought an air conditioner. I've been in Portland for 5 years, 5 summers. This is the first time I've been like, I'm done. I need an air conditioner.
It's
I can't deal with it anymore.
100 degrees, and it's only, so it was like mid-June. Got to like 80 today. It still rained.
Yeah,
just for a second.
My morning ride was rainy, and it felt really good.
Yeah,
yeah.
I didn't wake up till late.
Yeah,
today's my day off.
I'm super excited about the eclipse. I cannot wait to see one. A full solar eclipse will be in totality, so we get to see, actually take our glasses off and look at it for a couple of minutes while the moon crosses the sun.
I think the last time I saw one, I think I was like 7.
Have you actually seen a full solar eclipse?
I remember my grandma taking me, I think she might have taken me out of school, but I think it was like first grade.
Good grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the way to do it, because these things are rare and they're hard to get a hold of and hard to see.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, that was like 20 years ago. Yeah. More than 20 years ago. 25 years ago.
Was sitting in a waiting room and got talking with the secretary about the eclipse, and the guy sitting next to me chimed in and was like, "What? I thought eclipses only happened every 1,000 years."
What?
And I was like, "Oh, I had like I had to do a little bit of basic science education on the spot.
I think even if you stay in place, it still should happen.
It's every 500, I think, is the number in one
that
place.
one exact place.
Yeah, one exact place on average.
So I would have been in northern Jersey at the time. I should look that up later if I remember.
Oh, yeah, because there's totally timetables going back for... You can use math to figure out when eclipses happen at any time. Like, we have the planets and the moon mapped out well enough that we date historical events occasionally by when the eclipses happen. Some of the like ancient historical Rome, because they like made note of the eclipse because it was notable, and so we're able to like figure out, oh, it was in the span, and then we can use that to date other things because it's within a few minutes we can date at a specific time and place.
Sure.
So there's not often that historians get
cool.
that opportunity. But yeah, if you're looking at the eclipse, make sure you get your eclipse glasses. Don't burn your eyes out. No one can heal you.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or your favorite podcast client.